Well, in today's video, we're going to be talking about finding accommodation in Australia because, of course, when you come here to study, you're going to need to find accommodation. And there's basically two things that you're going to need to know. Where are you going to stay when you first arrive? And then where are you going to stay in the longer term? We're going to talk about the different options that are available, where you might be able to save money, and what kind of experiences you might have in those accommodation options. By the end of this video, you're going to know exactly what you want to do next. How good is this?
Yeah, it's awesome.
G'day and welcome to Choosing Your Uni. I'm Rob Malicki, and in today's episode, we're going to be exploring Catatuta, one of the most amazing places in all of Australia, only 40 or so kilometres from Uluru. The flies here are kind of crazy. Today, we're going to be talking about a topic that's really going to be helping you out, so let's get going. Well, in order to decide where you might stay when you first arrive in Australia, you first have to give a little bit of thought to what kind of accommodation you might want to spend your time in, at least for your first semester here. You know, do you want to stay in university accommodation, or do you want to try and get flatmates? Lots of people, when they first come to do a particular degree in Australia, will choose to stay in university accommodation for the first semester because it's really easy to organise. You're staying with other students, so it's a great place to make friends. And that kind of convenience of the option, for which you pay a little bit more, gives you a peace of mind when you first arrive in the country. One of the fantastic things about going through an Australian uni for your accommodation is that they do have lots of support available and lots of options. In the past, universities used to run their own accommodation, whereas a lot of that's now outsourced to private providers who do a really fantastic job of creating a good experience for students in that accommodation. So not only do they have, you know, the essentials of what you need in accommodation, but they're able to actually create a good atmosphere there as well, which is really great.
What are some of the websites that you can use to find accommodation, particularly student accommodation in Australia? Well, first of all, if you're looking to share an accommodation, flatmates.com.au is a very popular website. If you're looking to rent your own apartment, your own space, realestate.com.au is a very popular site. Then if you're looking to stay in one of the very, very many on-campus options for students, there's quite a few different providers now. So start off by checking the website of the Australian university you're hoping to study at to see who they work most closely with. You can also go to a site like student.com/au, which has an aggregation of many of the different providers that are out there. And then some of the other big student accommodation providers in Australia include Uni Lodge, Igloo, which is IGLU, as well as campus living villages.
And so if you do go through the university's accommodation office, for example, they're going to do a lot of that legwork for you in terms of liaising with providers and helping you get into accommodation. Are you going to get the best price? No, not necessarily, but it definitely means that when you arrive in Australia, you're going to have the certainty of knowing that your accommodation is sorted. And for the first 6 months, that's a pretty good option. Wow, I'm working hard here. This is steep. One of the limitations of using an accommodation provider through a university is that often they'll lock you into a contract for a period of time. So that might be like a trimester or a semester, which means you may be paying for a period that you don't need to use. For example, or maybe even a 12-month contract and you're going traveling for, you know, all of the summer and you have to pay for that time. Whereas if you're renting with flatmates, you're sub-renting, you know, with friends, that sort of thing, maybe you have a little bit more flexibility about moving in and moving out. Yeah, so you can lack a little bit of flexibility sometimes. Some universities have those traditional on-campus colleges where you can also have meal plans included, but not every Australian university has that, so you will need to look into the detail.